Hello and welcome to the 10th session of Java video series. In this session we will understand about static variables in Java. We have already discussed about the instance variables in Java. So if you have not watched that part, I would strongly recommend you to watch that part, right? Because it will give you a better understanding of static variable. Although I'm going to cover some examples or maybe one or two examples related to the instance variables in order to make a clear difference between static variables and the instance variables. So let's start with the topic, static variables. Say, as far as the definition is concerned, static variables are the variables, the value of these variables are not varying from object to object, right? So when I create say one object and the value of static variable say it is equals to 10, then I work upon that object and change the value of static variable to 20 and I make the value of 20 as is, then I create another object and try to access the value of this static variable. So when objects are created, the values which are already given inside the program are given in case of instance variables. So the value will be 10. But whereas in case of static variables, because I have changed the value to 20 with my first object, so the second object that I have created will access the value as 20 and not as 10. To prove or to understand this point better, I have one example over here. Let me take this example, right? So I have a class say test. In this class, how to declare a static variable? In order to declare a static variable, what I have to do, I have to use the keyword static. Static is the keyword. Just use the static keyword in front of any variable declaration and it will become static, right? Now this is static, this x becomes a static variable. There are places where we can only declare static variables. We cannot declare static variables anywhere inside the program. There are some fixed places inside the program. So x is a static variable. We can declare variables only inside the class but not inside the block or the method or the constructors, right? We cannot declare it inside the class, method or constructor. If a variable has to be static, it needs to be outside these three areas, right? So this is a static variable and it is static because we are using static keyword. So the first point which states that it's not varying from object to object. So to understand this point, consider that I have test class. I am going to create the object t1 and then I'm going to access the value of this static variable. So when I access the value of this variable, it's going to give me 10 as the answer because the value of the static variable is 10 over here. Remember, we can use the object reference to access the static variables, right? In the second instance, in the next line, what we have done, we have changed the value of static variable from 10 to 20 and then I created a new object t2 and from that object t2 I access the value of static variable once again. So in this case I am going to get 20 as the answer and not 10 as the answer, which is the case for instance variable. So let me quickly run this code. So I have already done it. So this is running now and this is the code. T1 equals to 10 in this case. Now I change the value 20, so it's 20 over here and the next for the next object. So it's changing its value. Remember, it's changing its value. So if the value of a variable is not varying from object to object, then it is not recommended to declare variable as instance variable, right? We have to declare such type of variables at class level by using static modifier, which we have done in this case, right? Next, in case of instance variable, for every object a separate copy will be created, right? So a separate copy will be created. In order to show you this, let me take this example once again. I'm just going to remove the static modifier from this declaration and now it's an instance declaration. Please mind this, it's an instance declaration now. So this is an instance variable declaration. We can access instance variable from the static context using the object reference. So test t1 is the object here, so we can access x using the object reference. It's gonna print 10. Here I have changed the value to 20, so in case of static there I got 20 as a response with t2, but in case of instance I'm gonna get 10. So this is the basic difference between the instance variable and the static variable. In order to run this, what I need to do is I have to recompile it because I have changed the program contents. It's running now, and here t1 equals to 10 and t2 equals to 10, whereas in case of static variable it was 20 over here. So there it means that object is one only. It's not the second object which is created with the object creation, second object creation, right? Whereas each time a new variable, a new object is created, the new variable is also created with this. So so this is the point. Now the question that comes into mind is where actually this static variable gets created or initialized when we run the class or the program, right? So static variable should be declared within the class directly, but outside of a method, not an, or block or constructor, right? This part is already defined. So if I try to say define, this is a method, this is a static method because I'm using static keyword over here. If a method does not have a static keyword, then it's non-static or instance area, right? Say I try to define a static variable over there, right? Just a simple declaration inside the method. So now I try to recompile the program because there are changes that I have done and I got the error, illegal start of expression, right? Static cannot be there. But as soon as I remove this static keyword, of course it's not static, but it is not instance as well. To have the clarity about the instance variable, please watch the previous videos. And once again I recompile the program and I'll find that it's, of course, required 4 and found double, right? I have to declare this as like f, right? Now this is a floating point variable type constant, literal, right? Save it. Now run once again. I'm making lots of mistakes. Now this is running fine, right? So this part being said, this is about static variables and their declarations in the area of the program where we have to declare them and where we are not required to declare them. So these 3 points are clear, I hope. Next, static variables will be created at the time of class loading. So when a class is loaded, static variables are also loaded at that time, and when a class is unloaded, static variables are also loaded at that time. Hence, scope of static variable is exactly same as .class file. So a .class file is created. Let me clear the screen. A .file is created when I run this command javac test.java, or some may say javac test.java. But when a class is loaded is the point when I run this command. Java test. When I run this, there are some events which are occurring behind the screen, behind the scene actually, not screen, which helps in running this program. So the steps that are going to happen at the time of execution of this Java test command are as follows. First, JVM will start, Java virtual machine will start. Then it will create and start main thread. This is the point from where the main program starts. Then it locates the test.class file. Test.class file is created when we run the javac or javac command, right? Then after locating, it loads it. As soon as the class is loaded, these static variables are also created. So this is the point where static variables are created. Now, after static variables are created, main method is executed, and after completion of main method, test.class file is unloaded. As soon as the test.class is unloaded, So static variables are also destroyed at this point. Now here's main method will stop and then JVM will shut down, right? So these are the steps that are happening behind the screens when we run Java test on our command prompt. So when I run this, all this has already happened, and this is the result of the instance variables, not static variable, because we have changed the value over there. So this part being said, static variables will be stored in method area. JVM has 5 areas. One of the areas is method area. So static variables are stored in method area. In easy point to remember, very important point also. We can access static variables either by object reference, right? We can create objects and then we can access the static variables, or we can access by using the class names. But recommended to use is the class name, right? Use the class name whenever required. It's more appropriate, because class name specifies what the class is doing and what type of variable you are accessing. Now within the same class, it is not required to use class name. If you are in the same class, then of course you can simply use the name of the static variable and you will access it. We can access static variables directly from both instance and static areas. We have already discussed about static area, and an area where static modifier is used inside method, and where no static modifier is used, then it is an instance area, right? So these are the two types of areas you can access static variables from both the areas. For static variables, JVM will provide default values, right? When we declare static variables and we do not give any initializing values to this, JVM automatically gives them the default values. For example, the default value for int is 0 and the default value for boolean is false. So these are some of the initializations that are by default given by the JVM. So static variables are also known as class level variables or fields. Class level variables, I hope you understand it now. So let's talk. This is one example that I'm going to discuss. Let's talk more about the examples so that we can have a better understanding of the topics that I have, points that I have so far discussed with you. So let me take this one. Yeah, this program says that this is a static variable. Here I have declared, here I have created an object of type test, and then using the name of the object, I can access the value of the static variable, right? So using object reference, I can access the value. So here I am going to get 10 as the answer. Of course, this is the class name. Using the class name, I can do it, right? So 10 I will get here. And if you are in the same class, then you will have the answer as 10 here as well. So this was one of the points which we have discussed. Again, it is in static context. I have used it in static context. I have accessed static variables in static context, right? We can access static variables in static context as well as instance areas, right? So this is the second point. I'm going to run this first. So Control C, let me copy it quickly, and I'm going to Control A, B, save this program. Now quickly run it, right? And this is 10 10 10 for this, right? This is the program. Now I'm going to take the second one and quickly change it. Control A, sorry, yeah, this one. This is change, save it, run it quickly, save time. Yeah, 10 once again. In both the cases it's going to print. Of course it's not going to print over here because main is going to execute, that's why this is going to print, but we haven't called m1 for once inside of a program, so it's not going to print. So this is one thing. Now next is, right, JVM provides default values. The point we have discussed, the example related to that is this. Control C over there, and let me quickly. So I haven't given any special values to the static variables. For int it's going to be 0, for double it's 0.0, for string it's going to be null, and we are going to get values over here. So let's quickly run this program and see the values. It's compiled. Yeah, fine. And these are the values 0, 0.0 and null, as we can see over here, right? Now the last point, yeah, this point we haven't discussed. Also it's easy one. Let me quickly go through the slide. And yeah, this point here I have created an object t1 and y equals to 20 over here and x is equals to 10 for this one. Now using t1 I changed the value to 888 from 10, right? Now I created t2 and the value of y is 20. So the value of y is not changed. Of course, if I have changed the value of y equals to 20 over here, it would have been 20 because it's instance variable, and for this the value is not going to be 10, it's going to be 888 because this is a static variable. So this is a static because I'm going to declare this as a static, and this is instance because I'm not going to use static modifier in front of this y. So this part being said, let's quickly see the example. Yeah, this is the example, which static int 10 int y. This is instance, this is static. I'm gonna access using the object reference. I have changed the value of x to 888 and also the value of y to 999. But when I created t2 and tried to print the values, I will get the value 888 to be there as changed, but 999 will not be there, and 20 will be the answer in this case. So I'm gonna quickly save it and run it and see. So as discussed, 888 and 20 is the answer. This is all about static variables. Thank you very much for listening, and in next video sessions we will be doing about the local variables related to Java, right? And after this we are going to do the videos related to the comparison of these three variables, right? So thank you very much for listening once again, and I hope that this is it. Yeah, this is it. Thank you.